couple things to talk about today. The current state of our nation, with these shooters, these assassins that seems to be going rampant, or at least picking up steam in our nation, and how that relates to black people, considering the shooters are not black, they're white. And as tragic as this moment is, could it have been a work in progress? Could it have been coming all along? Black people have been in this nation now for a little over 400 years. And I think we can all pretty much agree that what goes around comes around. People do reap what they sow, including nations, according to Scripture. And as well, there is a particular outcome of a house that is built on sand. And so when we divide that sand would be something that is not true, something that is evil. And when we consider that house as this nation, we understand the inception of this nation. This house was built on the genocide, the blood of Native Americans, and the enslavement of Africans, and many other people along the way, but primarily the Native Americans and Africans brought here to this nation. And so what I'm suggesting today is that it seems to me that our nation has had ample opportunity to acknowledge and right the wrongs. And I believe that throughout history, especially like maybe in the 60s or so, during the Civil Rights Movement and all, the nation was attempting to take certain steps in the proper direction. But somewhere along the line, whose ever fault it is, I want to say we all own some of that. The baton was dropped. Maybe black people were kind of satisfied in having a life that was better than it was, or more rights than they had, and didn't keep pursuing for more equality. Now that does happen, when you become comfortable in and of yourself in your own life. You don't seem to fight as hard for those folks who haven't quite made it to where you've made it. And then we want to maybe look at the white people as well, kicking and fighting and kicking the whole way against whole civil rights, doing what is right, affirmative action, and all the little things they've come up all the way up until modern times, negativities, battles against people of color. And of course that's a particular party, but then the other party, the liberal party as well. To me, when you have an issue that needs fighting for, an issue that's important enough to fight for, you fight with all of your might and you don't stop until it's done. Sort of like the freedom away from the tyranny of Great Britain. Taxation without representation is tyranny. We had a war over that because the case, the situation was such that everybody was all in. And so I don't really give the white liberal in America a pass on this. I mean, you feel better because you talk the right talk, but how enthusiastic in bringing this thing to an end. But I don't put that white liberal on any more negative plane than I do the black person that stopped fighting because they themselves had it. It's the same thing. I'm not suffering that bad, so there's only so far I'm going to go, and there will be days and weeks and months and years where the issues of other people may not even cross one's mind. Okay, this is where we are, and right has to be manifested. Wrongs have to be rectified, and it seems like that's what we're going through right now in this nation. Okay. It's just amazing, and every time you'd hear a news broadcast of a shooter, you'd wonder, is it going to be a black guy or is it going to be a white guy? And I think that's what I would go to the internet to see. Often if it was a black guy or whatever crime, his face would be plastered. If it was a white guy, you'd have to search for a couple of days before you'd figure that out. I don't know why that is, but it seems that in recent years, it's only been white people doing these shootings. And so, of course, I have some psychological reasons why I believe these things are happening. And so, but I think the underlying culprit is an unresolved guilt. Okay? See, you could I look at it like, say you have a man that's married, okay, and he hits his wife one time, and man, it hurts her and it hurts him that he did something like this to her. But he doesn't apologize to her, and he determines within himself he's not going to do it again. And then maybe he does it again, maybe he doesn't. But if he hasn't resolved that issue, every time he sees her, he's going to be heartbroken because of what he did to her. Even if it's not his conscious thought, his subconscious is going to be heartbroken because he knows it was wrong. But you know, each time he sees her, you know, he's going to be feeling bad, but eventually he's going to be resenting the bad feeling that he's feeling, and that resentment is going to change from his feeling to her. He's going to be resenting her, although it was the issue that he had and he subjected her to that he never dealt with. So now he's resenting her. And as that resentment isn't dealt with over time, he's going to become hating her. And even more volatile, even more prone to attack. Because he's got an unresolved issue inside that he hasn't really contemplated, hasn't really considered, and really the fix would be easy. The fix would be just simply to admit what you did and seek forgiveness, and that its internal situation will be resolved. But it isn't. He hasn't, and so he's still sick like that. And I want to correlate that to America and white people in America. No matter what side of the political spectrum you dwell on, they've been enjoying the privilege of not being the least in this nation. And so all I'm saying, because if you look at the shooters cross ideological lines. Some of them may be Republican, some of them Democrat. The one guy that shot Charlie Kirk, he had a transgender girlfriend, and he was a Republican. So what kind of I mean, trust, there's a lot of Republican gay folks out there that are just in the closet, but I'm just saying, this is so given that, then this really isn't a political thing. It's a human thing. And it's a human thing that cuts across the board of ideologies, religions, even social standing. You had that gentleman that was, that young boy came from a wealthy family, I think, that killed that CEO of on Wall Street. So even an economic upbringing isn't the issue either. The issue is, these are white people. And there was a history in this nation of white people benefiting off of the backs of non-white folks. And these would be liberals, conservatives, you know, and all the religions. These are the people benefiting. And it's like the chickens have come home to roost. That house on sand is beginning to fall. The storm has come. And there seems to be a reckoning in process. And it's my feeling it's not going to get better. You had like 3 shootings in the past week. You've had shootings of activists, political activists, shootings of police officers. You've had mass shootings in schools with children. Something to think about. And I'm simply suggesting if we dig deep enough, you know, we can figure out why. I think the reason is obvious, but it's not so much, I guess, figure out why. It's how can we make it stop? And my suggestion is you can't. Because we have been given over these few hundred years every opportunity to change, but the changes have been rebuffed. When Obama became president, it was like, man, there wasn't hardly a dry eye in the eyes of every black person in America. Realizing that all past atrocities had not been, you know, accounted for, had not been challenged, had not been paid back. But at least this would be a step in the right direction. Maybe America had changed. But from day one, he wasn't born here. shoot. We had all kinds of negative fringe groups on the opposite party popping up. So it really wasn't an issue then whether Obama was a Republican or a Democrat, because this issue that we're talking about goes a lot deeper than politics. It goes deeper to the very soul, the very foundation of this nation, the blood and the tears and the bones, the atrocities that this nation was built upon. I think I remember the other day a political person, I'm not going to mention his name, was talking, being interviewed and talking about how we, speaking of white Americans, this is our country that we built. Yes, but whose blood and bones was it built upon? It's very important. And what we've had a situation over all these years where folks just made light of it, kind of denied that there was any racism, denied that there was any issues in hiring or redistricting or even housing redlining. There was none of that at all. That had been dismissed. That was gone. And still black people were being murdered and killed by the police. Black people were being incarcerated unjustly, incarcerated with longer sentences than their white counterparts. Still, nothing could be proven, and statistically, folks would love to try to point at the numbers to prove otherwise. And for me, having an MBA and remembering all those statistics courses and the samples and all those surveys, how numbers can be manipulated. So I don't even get into a debate with folks about those numbers, because it's easy to manipulate numbers to make them read whatever you want them to read. Okay? But you can't manipulate the numbers in the face of fate, in the face of the chickens who are coming home to roost, and in the face of the harvest that has manifested from the seeds that have been planted, from the tainted seeds. This is where we are. And I was thinking the other day, that I was considering the targets of these shooters, these white shooters who you can't really trace an ideology or a religion or a social behavior to any of them, because they all vary, they're different. But I was looking then at their targets. What could they subconsciously symbolize? I was looking at the activists, like the far-right activists, and the political folks, like that guy Charlie that was just shot not too long ago. So what would an activist, what would a political activist represent? The ideology, harsh ideology, extreme ideology. See, you can get face to face with folks and begin arguing an ideological point that's putting down a race of people. And if you're arguing with someone who's not as bright as you are, who hasn't done the study that you have in preparation, you're probably going to defeat them in your debate. And so you could say things, racial things, you can say stereotypical things, you can say all kinds of negative things. You know you're wrong, they know you're wrong, but they can't prove it. That can be frustrating. I know I have a family member who's like really smart, on the other side of the political realm than me. And we have some deep debates. And one thing, I remember I was arguing with this brother once, and he was saying something to me that I really couldn't refute, but it didn't sound right. And then his wife, who's just as intelligent as he is, said, "Wait a minute, you know that isn't right." And she began to quote something to him that he already knew, but he wasn't going to share with me because I wasn't aware. See, these are the type things when people know but they can't prove it. And you can just go on and rallying against a particular innocent subgroup of the population. And other people are going to take issue with that, if not consciously, subconsciously. And they're going to be striking out, and I believe that's what we're seeing today. And as well, so I was looking at then these activists, that the ideologies sometimes are just so harsh, and folks are fighting against it. Sometimes the folks have the same ideologies, but their subconscious is fighting against it as well, because deep inside they know it's not right. A lot of psychological stuff. Man, they better get some mental checks on these folks with guns, because their subconscious, which is tapped into what is right, what is actual, is beginning to influence their conscious minds in such a way that seems to be violent. I was thinking then, about the religious organizations. And about most folks, they recognize, I'm a minister in a Christian church, the hypocrisy and the exploitation. Some folks just can't handle that because it's just not right. And if you're a little mentally off anyway, here we go. Let's see, who else do we have? We have the children, which is the most heart-wrenching part of all these shootings. Like the mass shootings in school, the children represent innocence. And maybe from a shooter's deep, sick psychological perspective, their own innocence lost, their vulnerability. And in a sense, they're just destroying what has been destroyed within them. And these are those kids. As well, the kids might, in someone's convoluted mind, might represent the future. And it's terrible, or the individual has no future left, and they're destroying that. So there are a lot of issues, and you want to say, well, do people really think this deep? I don't think this is thinking deep. I think manifesting from an individual's subconscious, there's a less than deep thought, because if there was deep thought, they wouldn't do that. Somebody who's in control of their thoughts, as much as we can be, wouldn't do something like that. So I'm just saying, in this nation today, this is simply retribution for the past. And so we see the political groups getting on there on both sides. The Democrats saying, well, look, these are the Republicans, and the Republicans saying these are the Democrats. The Democrats, these are far-right activists. These are left-wing radicals. No, they're white people. This isn't about politics. This is about divine retribution. And I don't want to say divine like it's orchestrated by God. As we've talked in other programs, I don't believe the sowing and reaping is actually God actually making sure something reaps for what they've sown. I believe that it is just as real and invisible, though, as gravity is. That gravity is a divine thing that happens. We may not know why, but we know the result of. And what I'm suggesting is this sowing and reaping concept, as foreign as this particular way of thinking might be, I believe it is divine too. Divine simply in a way that's in an established law. And what happens as a result. Cause and effect, good, bad. And then even you can read Scripture and say, be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever man sows, he shall also reap. And we see all through religious scriptures where nations had to suffer. Where nations had to suffer. We also saw where a nation like Nineveh, at the voice, hearing the voice of Jonah, the entire nation repented. So it is possible, but it's kind of difficult, especially to believe this nation. What I'm suggesting today is this is not funny, and it's not political. And it's inevitable. This has been predicted for quite some time, even using that 400 and some years in Scripture where the children of Israel were in bondage to Egypt, and correlating that to today and the black people in America. It's 400 and some years. It's that time. And we've seen over the years the rantings of like maybe the Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan and some other brothers, claiming it, and black people wanted to embrace it because it made you feel good. It might be impossible, it made you feel good, but lo and behold, it looks like it's happening. There's a biblical story, and this is just the urban channel, but I am a Christian minister, so this isn't church. But there is a story in the Old Testament where this army was getting ready to decimate the children of God, okay? And the children of God had no recourse. They couldn't win. So they were getting ready to be massacred the next day. But guess what? That army never came. The massacre never happened. And as it turned out, that army, the soldiers, for some reason got spooked and began to turn on themselves, and they killed themselves off. And so there was no battle and there was no enemy. And that was very interesting. And what I'm suggesting is that's what seems to be we're seeing today. This isn't about black people. Now, I keep throwing the divine in there, but it's very interesting. How black people have never really taken revenge on white people in this nation for what was done to them and to their ancestors, to our ancestors in this nation. And any other people would have just been on killing sprees. Okay, on September whatever, we're going on a killing spree. I remember from a Star Trek episode, this Klingon said, 1,000 throats can be slit in a single night by a running man, it could happen and it could be tragic. But black folks haven't done that. We have been, there may have been black on black crimes, but there haven't been, a large number of black on white crimes. And if anybody deserved it, given the history of this nation, it would be that. But it hasn't. And what I'm saying is that you do have to reap what you sow. Man, I don't want to keep using Bible scriptures because this isn't the religious program. But there's another particular story where Abraham was traveling with his wife and they went to this foreign land. I think it was Egypt. And he had Sarah tell them that she was his sister because she was cute and he didn't want them killing him just to take her, right? And so they saw how cute she was, and the Pharaoh had her brought and became a part of his harem. And then one night, he had this dream, and it was like God was speaking to him. He said, "You're a dead man." And he was like, "For what?" And he said, "Well, that woman that you have in your harem, she's a married woman belonging to Abraham." And he was like, "Well, I didn't know. Nobody told me that." She said it was his sister. And this is what the voice of God spoke to him. But this is what the scripture says. It says that I know you didn't know. That's why I kept you from touching her. Okay, so there would be retribution on you for that crime. And that's what I'm saying here. To me then, when I look at how black people have not responded as we could have, and would have been seemingly, from a moral perspective, justified retribution on white people in this nation, it's like if there was a divine hand, it was keeping black folks from responding like that. Because the future was going to be them destroying themselves. And we see a lot of chaos in our government. We see a lot of chaos and negativity and craziness and fighting and unreasonable fighting back and forth between the political parties. Just to date this program, I think the government's supposed to shut down tomorrow. This is going to be October, in 2025. I mean, there's just so much chaos, so much negativity, and people being killed all the while it's going, to the point where they're not even focusing so much on these murders. Man, I didn't even know there were 3 murders last week. So I just happened to read, see on TikTok, somebody said there were 3, murders this week. White folks killing people. And they're killing white people primarily. This is like, man. So this is a reality. And I know I have a mixed audience watching my program. So come on now. This is the reality that we're all facing today. We have to come to a place, I know, especially in politics and in religion, that we know sometimes that we might not be exactly correct, or that might not be true or whatever, but still, this is my side, so I'm sticking with it. But we're coming to a point where we need to look at this thing seriously. Because if you want to be exonerated from the chaos, from the reaping, you're gonna have to stand up, or at least walk away. But if somebody is due some reaping, I wouldn't be affixing myself to that particular group. Okay. I know it's hard to say, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm a white man, right? I'm just saying, you better put some blood over your doorpost, some lamb's blood up there, so that death angel will pass by. But there's getting ready to be a whirlwind. This nation is getting ready to reap the whirlwind. And simply because, I guess, in arrogance, no matter what the cries were. I remember, when that whole Black Lives Matter, the whole Blue Lives Matter, that whole thing came about, that was started by it wasn't a slogan, it wasn't an organization. It was just something a grieving black mother said whose son had been murdered. She was crying that Black Lives Matter. And immediately she began to get ridiculed by white folks. No, all lives matter. Come on now. How cruel is that? Do you think there's not going to be anything to pay? See, we thought in this nation that in arrogance that there would be no retribution, that you can do and say and treat people however you want. We built this nation, like the politician said a couple of days ago. But no, our nation is a relatively young nation compared to many of the other nations, like in Europe and in Asia and in Africa and all. Come on now. So we've been arrogant, thinking we're getting away with this stuff, and we weren't even teenagers yet. Well, guess what? Now the acne is starting to manifest. Now the disease is beginning to hit. Now the response, the reaping is getting ready is manifesting right before our eyes. And I don't think there's anything we can do about it until this thing is played out. It's almost like a fever. Until the fever breaks, you just got to ride it out. And that's why I really don't get really into the news so much. You know, the Democrats are mad about this, and then the Republicans are mad about this, and they're doing this. And I don't even watch that stuff. I watch that stuff before elections because it's quite entertaining. But after an election, I don't. But I can't watch all that. There's no value to me to that. What is going to happen is going to happen. I don't even send money to any of the political parties. I can't put stop on all those texts I keep getting. What's going to happen is going to happen, and I think I see what's happening. It's unfolding just as I'm sharing it with you right now. Now I'm suggesting then to black folks, and I'm having a very difficult time with black people right now. We have black people. Now this is of course what we're dealing with in the United States, but the situation with the black people is worldwide. And you know, I don't want to say this in an arrogant way, but the United States black people have been sort of like leading the charge. In as far as influence in the world. I mean, you go all over the world and you see the hip-hop artists, you see folks looking like black folks. I mean, black people, acting like American black folks, looking like American black folks, all that stuff, and that's all well and good. So what I'm suggesting, let's just be real about it. Let's not be offended about it. Let's just recognize that what is happening here is going to influence what's going to be happening in other places all over the world where there are black people. Because black people are going to be getting energized. But the key is to recognize a viable strategy. Okay? We got to realize that we can't get ourselves involved in a mix. Like, look, this stuff went down when Charlie Kirk got killed. All of a sudden they started attacking black people. All of a sudden HBCUs started getting, bomb threats, and these couple of jokers went down to Tennessee State to try to do something down here. They got run off the campus. But we have to be very careful as black people that we're not involved in that mix. We have to find some way, and I know it's difficult, and I've gotten that way, like on TikTok, just to see some ridiculous stuff on there, just to go by without looking or without commenting on it. We just have to ignore them. See, black people, if black people would just ignore these folks, let them come on campus, just walk by them, don't even look at them. Don't say anything to them, don't laugh at them, don't yell at them, don't say a word, walk by as if they weren't there. That'll mess them up. I mean, come on now, just turn your back. They're not going to talk to the back of your head if you're not paying them any attention. Just let it go. And let them begin to refocus on the real enemy, and that's themselves. And let them continue destroying themselves. Right now they're trying to ignore that they're killing each other and try to suck black people into the mix. Don't do that. We're not in that mix. This is their destruction in America today. And I'm not talking about the destruction of white people. I'm talking about the destruction of the white institutions. Those white institutions that have historically mistreated people of color. They're crumbling. Let them crumble. We're not in it. Don't get drug in it. Because you do reap what you sow. So you get drug in it, and then you do something to that guy on campus. You're over 18 now, probably, if you're a college student, and now you're jammed up in the legal system, and your career is over. Man, I mean, I know in particular HBCU, I won't mention it because I know somebody that attends there. This young man, he was a good young man. He was like the student body president or something like that. And there was an issue that he was protesting and that he shouldn't have been. Maybe, and they got rid of him. They suspended him and expelled him. And he was a bright young man with a great future in college. I think he was a junior or a senior or something. Now he's out. Now he's got legal problems. Don't let them drag you into their mess, their strategies. strategies. This is not the 1970s where you can have student sit-ins, where you can take over a university. This is not that time. That time was good for then, but you can't do that now. Now sit back and watch them destroy themselves. So you have the white folks calling themselves Republicans. You have the white folks calling themselves Democrats. They're fighting each other. They're destroying each other. I'm not beholden to either party. Of course, I might pick a party, depending on what's going on and how it will best serve my interest. But the reality is both of these parties were spawned in this evil that we call our nation today. The Democrats and the Republicans, they're the children of this nation. They're the children of the genocide. They're the children of the enslaved Africans. They're the children. That's why I've always taken issue with black folks calling themselves Democrats or Republicans. Because until there's total equality here, we're just being used. I've always said this. You know this on my program and all. And the people I talk to face to face. That's reality. Now, all this being said, all this chaos, all this stuff that's going on that's obvious for the eyes to see, now's the time for black people to start coming up with a strategy. Don't just keep business as usual. Man, if you got a drug habit, if you got an alcohol habit, you need to kick it. Because if you realize it deep inside, you are self-destructing. And so why would a human being self-destruct? And you can follow all the way back that to the ills perpetrated on your ancestors and on you, the hopeless or whatever. This is what you are now. Any negative, we came here unwilling. We were healthy people, good people. We'd say we are ancestors brought here, mistreated for hundreds of years. Whatever ills we have in this nation today is a result of those folks. It's not you. It wasn't your ancestors. To be honest, your ancestors survived. Many didn't survive. If you're here today, your ancestors survived. They should be applauded. But you got some issues. You got some negative issues in your life, maybe you do, whether it's the obvious ones like the drug use or the alcohol use, infidelity, issues with work, whatever your issues are, whatever issues you have, they all relate back to the issue of those folks who brought us here, okay? So what I'm telling you now, it's time to stop. And you can. I'm proof of that. My reason was another reason. I'll be 67 this year in 2025 in about a month and a week or two, okay? And when I was 28, I stopped getting the buzz of every kind. I drank more than everybody else. I got the buzz more than all that stuff, that whole lifestyle. I was that guy that that always did more than everybody else. That was me. And some of y'all out there remember me. You know me. That's who I was. So I can tell you now, I'm totally sober, totally free. I have been for 39 years now. And I just thought I was going to be a cool old man one day. I would have never believed I was going to be sober. But I am. And so I'm telling you, you can too, and you have to. Because when all this stuff goes awry, as they are killing themselves and destroying themselves, when the smoke settles, when the dust clears, you need to be standing. Or is it the dust settles and the smoke clears? You need to be standing of worth. As I've shared many times, I was 50 years old when I decided to go to night school. I earned my associate degree. I earned my bachelor degree. I earned my MBA in 10 years going to night school while I was working. So that's possible. And I was 50 to 60. So if you're 25 to 35, or if you're 30 to 40, if you're younger than I was, you can do it too. When all this stuff clears up, there's going to be somebody to be standing to be able to stand in and take the place of those who are no longer there. All this stuff right now, trying to get rid of people, fire people, the government's doing all this stuff, well, guess, it's all going to backfire. And when it backfires, all those people are going to be gone. And all I'm suggesting is, be prepared to step up. This is that opportunity in your life. But we're dealing with black folks now. We're dealing with a lot of our people that have real serious issues that are very hard to reach. I've been dealing with them myself lately. Some of you know I've been working in the black community maybe for about over 25 years, just trying to help, whether it's feeding programs, juvenile detention center, mentoring for like 17 years, all the stuff, trying to get some stuff accomplished. A lot of folks doing stuff. But what I found is I found like 4 categories of black folks that we're dealing with right now. And if you're in one of these categories, just begin to self-reflect and say, I don't want to be this guy anymore. It doesn't matter what you were. I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what kind of person you were, man. When I look back sometimes at what kind of person I was, man, I'm like, I'm glad most of those people are dead by now because nobody remembers. But all I'm saying is you can change. So I look at, there's a type black person today in our community that is just doing their own crazy destructive things, stealing stuff, just taking advantage of people, living their own selfish life, doing whatever it is they want to do. You see them all on social media, all on TikTok, out there siding with their oppressor, ragging against black folks simply because they'll get clicks, they'll get likes, and they potentially make some money. We got people throwing their own people under the bus for financial gain. That was the whole slave trade, man. Come on now. But that's what we got. We got black folks out here raping other black folks, stealing from other black folks, selling drugs, using drugs, all kinds of that, just in their own world, not even concerned with what's going on. That's the number one kind of black folks. And it's almost like at the moment, it's just like too late to get to those folks. There's 4 of these, by the way. Second type black folks are the anti-black folks. Those folks that just love white people. I guess they kind of wish they were white all growing up, and now they just love white folks. So anything, those are the ones you find that politically they side with whatever white people are on. They're the ones, when George Floyd was choked out by the police officer, these black folks were saying, well, he shouldn't have been trying to pass that bad 20, as if that was justification for a human being's life being taken. So you have folks like that are just going to side with white folks no matter what. And I don't know what they went through in life. I don't know why. Maybe they were mistreated. Maybe they were made fun of by black people. Maybe they just saw how white people were just enjoying their lives and not having to have any kind of negativity, so they joined them. And they're like more anti-black than white people are. And try to ingratiate themselves to white people by degrading and being derogatory about other black people. That's the other kind of anti-black. That kind of person can change. Now I can't say I've experienced that, because I've never been anti-black, okay? I was the guy in the 8th grade back in the early 70s wearing a black jacket and a black beret to school, Had the teachers calling me Martin X, So I've never been anti-black, but I know we have a lot of black people that are. That's a problem. And all you have to do is just wake up in the morning and think, I was wrong, I'm not going to be this anymore. Look at yourself in the mirror and see what you look like and say, okay, well, if I'm anti-black, I'm anti this guy in the mirror, okay? So don't do that. Don't do that. And these type folks will equate themselves, to white people, talking about how I speak white, There's no such thing as speaking white. You know what I'm saying? And so right there, as soon as you try to feel like you speak white, you've just downgraded black people by expressing that you speak in a particular way that's better than that. But I'm telling you, from a person who lived in Europe, who moved to Kansas, who moved to Maine and came to Ohio, faced with country white folks from Kentucky, from Tennessee, from West Virginia, what are they speaking? So I'm saying that don't be belittling black people by acting like you speak white because you speak proper English, because most of the white folks I know don't speak proper English, especially in this region of the country, okay? So I'm just saying we just need to do better. Don't hate yourself. Sort of like Malcolm X, who taught you to hate the color of your skin? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose? Don't be that way. And all you have to do, recognize it's not right. Recognize the people that you're trying to align yourself with have been evil. They have been exploiters. They have been thieves. They have been murderers. They have been rapists. That's the history, and those are the people you want to align yourself with. I see this all the time, especially with Latinos, like the last, Latinos, a lot of them. It's like there's this divide. There's the lighter Latinos and the darker Latinos. The Latinos want to ingratiate themselves to white folks. I'm like, why? Well, why would you think that would be a good thing? I can tell you why. Because they were colonized. Every nation that was colonized, every country that was colonized, 100, 200 years later, 300 years later, the people have an affinity toward that, and they have been brainwashed over centuries to believe that it was better to be that these guys are better than us. So that whole white superiority thing, that comes from the colonizers. See, black people that were enslaved in America, we were not colonized, okay? We were enslaved here in America. You didn't come up looking at that white man was superior to you. You recognized the dynamics of what was going on. You were taken from a civilized nation. You know, your people were the ones who excelled in astronomy. Yours excelled in medicine. Yours excelled in mathematics and science and architecture, irrigation, and all that stuff, okay? And you were taken and brought here by people less superior than you, but they had stronger weapons and they were more brutish, and they brutalized you quickly, and you didn't have a chance to recover. And that's what slavery was. You knew that. So you grew up not idolizing your oppressor. You grew up not thinking your oppressor was superior. You grew up hating your oppressor. And so that is the difference between black folks that came through slavery, especially in America, and black folks or brown folks or yellow folks that were colonized, who grew up wishing to be like their white colonizer, okay, because they were better, and that's what they idealized. So now that's what you have a lot of those Cubans, and a lot of those Argentinians, a lot of those folks, not Argentina, but Peruvians. A lot of those folks found out the hard way. You know, why would you want to align yourself with or to idolize somebody who really, if you look carefully, you are superior than they are? They don't want you to speak your language. They hardly speak one language. You speak two. Come on, are they superior to you? Really? No. And even with the immigrants coming in and working the fields, which is what the black folks did when they came here, because their superior folks didn't know how to do that. So really, when you examine the situation of white supremacy, it's like the emperor's wearing no clothes, but everybody's acting like he is. The white folks are enjoying that. Of course we're superior. Because the people that of color are convincing them that they are, one way or another. And it's going back to those numbers of the black people that are continuing in the destructive lifestyle. They're affirming the myth of black people that these white people have of them. Then you got the black people that are just loving white people. They're affirming them too. God, they want to be like us. We must be superior. And then the third category. Okay, we'll get off of that. I think you know where I was going, right? Okay, so we'll go to the third category of black person, is the one that's always involved. The one that's always involved in organizations. It's really pro-black, pro-everything black. And this breaks down into category A and category B. The black person's always about something, okay? But for some reason, this black person thinks that he can only be successful if white people join his fight. So right there, he's got the same issue as number two there. Now, he doesn't want to be white, but he's believing he can't be successful unless white people are helping him. That's the whole welfare system as it pertains to black. Now, we all know that there are more white people on welfare than black people, but the numbers of black people per capita are greater. But these people are believing that this is what they need to survive, and that's because that's what they told their mama told them. That's what their mama told them. And for a long time, because of the state of this nation, that was the only way they could survive. But it's not true now. But you're gonna have to do something. But I said, so these black folks in category 3, they just think they can only make it if white folks are helping them, okay? And they have a lot of characteristics that are suspect. Like, I know a few. They're like real radical brothers, you know, talking the talk. They got Malcolm's speech memorized, Martin's speech memorized, all these guys memorized, but they're like hugging white women in front of black women. their infidelity on their own wives. The only black person they really have responsibility for is their black wife, and they're cheating on her. So I'm just saying, these aren't real. These aren't real folks that are down for the cause. They're just down for the look and the talk, and it makes them feel like they're doing something, but they're really doing absolutely nothing. They're believing they can't make it without white people, and they're cheating on the black people they have charge over. So, I'm really against infidelity, especially in the black community. I guess you could tell, right? Okay, so then we have the black people that are all about blackness, but they're sort of segregated, especially the American black, that whole FBA thing, fundamentally black, whatever. The folks that don't want to have relationships with any other black people except those that came from the lineage of slaves. I mean, how stupid is that? There's power in unity. There's weakness in division. This is not the time to be dividing black people. This is the time to be uniting black people. But I guarantee you that whoever came up with this idea, there's some kind of financial gain that's coming their way as a way of promoting this foolishness. Okay? No, the power is in the unity. Okay? And then the fourth guy, or girl, or woman, is the one who's actually working for the cause, trying to make things happen, and probably feeling a little bit forlorn and depressed at times, thinking it isn't going to happen, but they can't quit trying. Those guys. And I'm just suggesting we all need to be that number 4, that last guy, especially in this time, as this nation is falling apart, as white people are losing their grip on themselves and this illusion of superiority, killing each other. It's time to get ourselves together. Now I shared something. This is what I want to close with. This is my caveat. This is my warning. Don't let this situation subside in whatever it's going to look like, and your life is still the same as it is right now. Okay. I remember when Obama became president, and I had this program, so I've been on the air now for over 20 years. I told on cable and YouTube when it came out, and it was right around that time, that something magic was in the air, and that you needed to step in that magic and do something that you had never done before, because this was the time. And so I decided, well, I have a high school diploma, let me go get an associate degree. Let me pick a language that I've never tried to speak before. So I decided to learn Egyptian Arabic. So I tried things that I had never tried before, and one was that college education. I had a high school diploma. So I was going to go to school and just get an associate degree. Kept going, got a bachelor's degree, kept going, got an MBA. All I'm saying was, so 10 years later, after Obama became president, I was not the same person I was when he stepped into that Oval Office. I'm saying when situations come that are uniquely and visibly different than they had been, you do something different in your life. So when that situation subsides and maybe returns back to normal, you'll not be in the same position you were in before that happened. But look, a lot of brothers, sisters, didn't do a thing. What did Obama do for me? He inspired me. I got 3 degrees as a result of it. You see what I'm saying? And so then, okay, that's done. So then after Obama, Trump becomes president. I'm like, uh-oh. Scooby-Doo would say, ruh-roh. So, but still the same thing. Something out of the ordinary. And for a lot of white folks, this was a wonderful thing. A lot of black folks, this wasn't a wonderful thing. So it's still something different. So take this opportunity to go ahead and do something that you've never done before. So that when this dust settles, when this man steps out of office, you'll not be the same person you were when he stepped in. A lot of our people didn't do a thing. Still talking about what did Obama do for us? Still talking that lame rap. So then Biden becomes president. And I'm like, okay, Biden's president. So I'm just saying the same thing over and over again. Do something different. Okay, now he's gone and Trump is president. Okay, do something different. Yeah, I don't know how long this is going to last. It looks a little... Now, this looks the most crazy from any situation we've ever seen in the history of this nation. I'm saying do something. If you have bad habits, if you have addictions, whatever you got going on in your life, negative cash flow, all because of your lifestyle. If you're out of shape, overweight, high blood pressure, whatever your situation is, change it. I got this TikTok thing that I'm doing for the next 40-some days. I have this challenge for about 150 days. I'm down to like 42 days. I put a 90-second video and I just put an encouraging word of motivation for whatever it is you're putting your hand to go find me. Find it, I think I'm on the 42nd day countdown. November 11th, my 67th birthday, Veterans Day, is when it's completed. And then I'll start another challenge. But I'm just saying, change your life. You're the only... Quit complaining. Quit hustling. Quit doing this. Doing stuff that isn't going to be long term. That when you're 50, when you're 60, when you're 70, you're not going to have regrets because you didn't take care of your business. I'm telling you, and if you're young, take advantage of it. Man, I've been working... I just calculated now I'm getting older, right? So I'll be like 67 this year. And in 2025, November, I started working when I was 17 years old in 1976 when I joined the military. I've been unemployed like 5 months in almost 50 years. I've always worked. So I've always had money. There were long periods of time in there until I was blowing the money, spending it crazy, frivolously and all that stuff. Social Security doesn't know what I was spending my money on. They didn't know. I may not have been paying my bills right. I may have been getting a buzz too much, going out too much, blowing my money. All they know is this is how much money and this is how much money I put into Social Security. And so even though I was frivolous, with the jobs I may have had, it built up, and I got like 50 years of Social Security. I'm still not even retired. I think I'm going to wait till I'm 70 before I claim it. That's 3 more years. Gosh. But the point is, if you want to be well when you're old, you got to take care of business when you're young. Okay? And when I say take care of business, the opportunities are different. The opportunities when I was coming up all those years, it was you could always get a job. The opportunities now, especially with the internet, you can make a whole lot of money. but just make money. And if you can't not make money with the internet, get a job while you're trying to figure out how to make money with the internet. But don't not make money, man. Because your future self is either going to benefit or it's going to suffer from the financial decisions you make today. And so as we close this thing, I'm just suggesting we are at a strange time in this nation where the oppressors have been falling on their own swords, and it's going to get worse. They're going to be trying to blame it on the brown people, blame it on the black people, Now blame it on... But what it's going to boil down to, it's them. And really, the sooner they figure that out and confess and admit it and acknowledge it, it'll probably stop. But I think we know by now they're not going to do that. They're going to ride this thing out all the way to the end, man. Just when it happens, you just be ready. Be ready. You be ready to step into a position of authority, a position of money, because you're sober, you're saving money, you probably have more. You have more of an education, and you got your head on straight. And you're going to keep tuning into my channel, on cable, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram, to be motivated. Anytime you might want to drop that ball, don't drop that ball. Pick that ball up and keep going. You're going to benefit from all this chaos if you make the right moves. All right? How's that? Well, anyway, I want to thank you once again for joining me and listening. And I want to invite you to listen again. You take care. Bye.